Hey third grade, it's Miss Perry again. I am here with another read aloud video for you guys. We finished last time the story of Oedipus, which was a tragedy. And remember we talked about how there's a whole Greek muse whose only job was to sing of the tragedies. And you guys gave some thought and consideration to why that genre, the word genre means what kind of story is it, why that genre is important. Today we're going to switch genres to an epic story. There's another muse in Greek mythology whose job it was just to tell epic stories. These are the stories of heroes and adventure and great deeds. This is a story that you guys are familiar with because you read about it at home in history. It's the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, of his ship the Argo and his crew of heroic sailors, the Argonauts. Now, in history, you looked at it through the lens of why is this story meaningful for the Greek people as a civilization? And you might have considered that previously the Phoenicians had been the great seafarers on the Mediterranean, and the Greeks eventually came into their own power as sailors, and the story of Jason shows us how that happened, how they became great sailors. Well, that was the historical context. Today we're going to be reading about the Greek myth, the story, and so we're going to get a lot more details of Jason and his adventure. And this telling of the story is not as interested in the facts or in what it was like to be a sailor on the Mediterranean at this time. It's much more interested in the characters and their heroic deeds and why the story is meaningful. So as you listen to a familiar story, give some attention to that. As always, you might notice me looking down. That's because I have my notes that are going to help me hopefully pronounce some of these tricky words correctly. Also, it's a little windy out here, so I'm just going to do my best and hopefully the pages won't rustle too much. But without further ado, let's jump right in. The Muses sang about handsome Jason and his quest for the Golden Fleece. Jason of Iolcus was as strong and well-bred as he was handsome, for he had been raised by the wise centaur Cheiron. Jason's father had brought the boy to the centaur and had asked the centaur to bring him up, for his father feared that his own brother Peleus, who had taken from him the throne of Iolcus, might harm his son and heir. In Cheiron's lonely mountain cave, young Jason was raised to be a hero, skilled in all the manly sports. When he was grown, he left his foster father to go to Iolcus and reclaim his father's throne. Hera, who was paying a visit to Earth, saw the handsome youth as he walked down from the mountain. His golden hair hung to his shoulders, and his strong body was wrapped in a leopard skin. Hera was taken by his fine looks. She quickly changed herself into an old crone, sort of an ugly old woman, and stood helplessly at the brink of a swollen stream, as if she did not dare to wade across. Jason offered politely to carry her and lifted her on his strong shoulders. He started to wade, and at first she was very light, for she was old and frail. But with each step, she grew heavier and heavier, until when he reached midstream, she was so heavy that his feet sank deep into the mud. He even lost one of his sandals, but he struggled bravely on, and when he reached the other side, the old crone revealed herself as the goddess Hera. Let me get rid of my sticky notes so you can see the picture. So there you can see the hero, young Jason, with the old crone Hera on his shoulders. "Lo," she said, "you are a mortal after my liking. I shall stand by you and help you win back your throne from your uncle Peleus." This was a promise that the goddess gladly gave, for she had a grudge against Peleus, who had once forgotten to include her when he sacrificed to the gods. Jason thanked her and went on his way in high spirits. When he arrived in Iolcus, people crowded round him, wondering who the handsome stranger might be. But when King Peleus saw him, his cheeks paled. An oracle had predicted that a youth with only one sandal would be Peleus's undoing. But Peleus feigned great friendship when Jason said who he was and why he had come. Feigned means pretended. Peleus feigned great friendship when Jason said who he was and why he had come. But underneath he held dark thoughts and planned to do away with his guest. Peleus feasted Jason and flattered him and promised him that the throne would be his as soon as he performed heroic deeds to prove himself worthy of being a king. I know you're going to have to bear with me as I try to pronounce this next word. Let's see if I can find it. In the kingdom of Colchis, at the shores of the Black Sea, and you guys all know where the Black Sea is, in the kingdom of Colchis on the shores of the Black Sea, said Peleus, on a branch in a dark grove of trees, there hangs a golden fleece, shining as brightly as the sun. Bring the fleece to me, and the throne shall be yours. The golden fleece was once the coat of a flying ram, sent by Zeus to save the life of young Prince Phrixus, Phrixus of Thessaly. The crops had failed, and Phrixus's evil stepmother had convinced his father that he must sacrifice his son to save his country from famine. Sadly, the king built an altar and put his son on it. But Zeus hated human sacrifice, and as the king lifted his knife, a golden ram swooped down from the skies and flew off with Phrixus on his back. They flew far to the east and landed in the kingdom of Colchis. The king of Colchis understood that Phrixus had been sent by the gods, and he gave him his daughter in marriage and sacrificed the ram. Its glittering fleece was hung in a sacred grove, and it was the greatest treasure of that country. King Peleus was certain that Jason would not return alive, for he knew that the warlike king of Colchis would not part with the fleece, and that a never-sleeping dragon was guarding it. But Peleus did not know that Jason had Hera's help. Give me timber and men, and build for me a sturdy ship, and I shall sail off at once, said Jason. The king gave him what he asked for, and a great ship, the Argo, was built. It was the most seaworthy ship ever seen. Athena herself prodded Hera to put a piece of sacred oak in its prow. The prow is the front of the ship. The oak had the power to speak in times of danger and to advise Jason what to do. So there we see the good ship Argo. I'm going to show it to you again in a minute and introduce you to some of these characters. With a ship like that, it was not hard for Jason to gather a crew of heroes. Even Hercules came with his young friend, let me see if I can get this one, with his young friend Hylas. Cales and Zetes, winged sons of Boreas the north wind, also joined, as did Orpheus, who came along to inspire the crew with his music. Soon each of the 50 oars of the ship was manned by a hero who swore to stand by Jason through all dangers. So you see the ship with its great crew. Let's see. There you see Orpheus. You might remember his story, the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. He was a great musician. And then there we see Zetes and his brother Cales, the sons of the north wind. And here's Hercules in his lion skin, Jason in his leopard skin. And then one of those young men must be Hylas. I think it's Hylas, who is the good friend of Hercules. Soon each of the 50 oars of the ship was manned by a hero who swore to stand by Jason through all dangers. Before they set sail, the heroes, who called themselves the Argonauts, sacrificed richly to the gods and made sure that they forgot none of them. Poseidon was thus in a good mood. He called for the west wind, Zephyr, and under full sail the Argo sped towards the east. When the wind grew tired and died down, the Argonauts put out their oars and rowed with all their might. Orpheus beat out the time with his lyre, that's like a harp, and the ship cut through the waves like an arrow. One after the other, the heroes grew tired and pulled in their oars. Only Hercules and Jason were left rowing, each trying to outlast the other. Jason finally fainted, but just as he slumped forward, Hercules' huge oar broke into 2 pieces, and so equal glory was won by both. The Argonauts landed on a wooded coast so that Hercules could cut for himself a new oar. While Hercules searched for a suitable tree, his young friend Halus went to a pool to fill his jar with fresh water. When the nymph of that pool saw the handsome boy bending down, she fell in love with him. She pulled him down with her to the bottom of the pool, and Hades vanished forever without leaving a trace. Now, in this next section, we're going to hear about Hercules' heroic flaw. Even heroes in Greek mythology, who are in many senses the best of the best, often have one thing about them that they struggle against. It's their great flaw. I don't remember if we read about this in history, but Achilles, the great hero of Troy, remember, had that spot on his ankle that was weak, and that was his flaw. Hercules has a heroic flaw as well, but his is a flaw of character. We've already seen it a couple times get him into a great deal of trouble, and we're going to see again that heroic flaw. His flaw in character, not in body, not in heart. His flaw in character is going to come back and bite him. Hercules went out of his mind with grief when he could not find his friend. He ran through the woods, calling for Hylas, beating down whatever was in his way. The Argonauts, brave as they were, all feared Hercules when he was struck with this folly. What is that folly? They hastily boarded the ship and sailed away without him. On towards the east, the Argonauts sailed until they came to a country ruled by a king who was known for his knowledge and wisdom. They went ashore to ask the way to Colchis, but the king was so weak that he could barely answer their questions. He was so thin that only his skin held his bones together. Whenever food was set before him, 3 disgusting harpies, fat birds with women's heads, swooped down and devoured his meal. What they did not eat, they left so foul and filthy that it was not fit to be eaten by man or beast. No one in his kingdom could help keep the harpies away. The Argonauts felt sorry for this starving king. They told him to have a seat at his table, and when the harpies swooped down again, Zeus and his brother Achilles, the sons of the north wind, took to their wings. They could fly faster than the harpies, and when they caught them, they whipped the evil pests so hard that they barely escaped with their lives. The harpies flew to the south, never to be seen again. At last, the famished king could eat in peace. So here we see, I'm not sure how easily you can see, it's not showing up on my screen very well. The harpies, the horrid birds, and there you see Zeus and his brother chasing them away. And down below, you can see the famished old king. See him down there. The king could not thank the Argonauts enough and told them how to set their course and what dangers they might encounter. No ship had yet been able to reach the shores of Colchis, he said, for the passage to the Black Sea was blocked by 2 moving rocks. The rocks rolled apart and clashed together, crushing whatever came between them. But if a ship could move fast as a bird can fly, it might be able to get through. So he gave Jason a dove and told him to send the bird ahead of the ship. If the dove came through alive, then they would have a chance, he said. If not, then they had better give up and turn back. Who else do we know who had a ship who needed a dove to give him a sign? There is a true story. There's a story we know to be true. This is the story of mythology. There's a story we know to be true that has an element much like this one. The Argonauts took leave of their king and sailed toward the clashing rocks. From afar, they could hear the din of the rocks, and the heroes trembled. But as the rocks rolled apart, Jason released the dove, and the bird flew between the rocks like a dart. Only the very tips of its tail feathers were clipped off when the stones clashed together. "All men to the oars!" Jason shouted. Orpheus grasped his lyre and played, and the music inspired the heroes to row as never before. The Argo shot ahead like an arrow when the rocks rolled apart, and only the very end of its stern, that's the back part of the ship, only the very end of its stern was crushed as they clashed together. Again, the rocks rolled apart and stood firmly anchored. But the spell was broken, and from then on the ships could safely travel in and out of the Black Sea. The Black Sea was a dangerous sea to sail upon, and Hera had her hands full guiding the Argonauts through perils. But with her help, Jason brought his ship safely through the raging storms, past pirate shores and cannibal islands, and the Argonauts finally arrived at Colchis. All right, we're going to stop there. This is sort of a long story, so I'll come up with the next part of the video really soon. You guys know that I wish we could be together in the classroom. I miss you guys. I don't enjoy not being with you, but this is what we're doing right now, and we have a really beautiful opportunity to make the best of it. So I'm praying for you guys every day. I'm thinking about you often, and I know that really beautiful things are coming out of this time, even though I can't wait to be together with you really soon. Bye.